I live in a rental house with 10 animals, and I may not have the answer for all rental situations, but I can tell you how I managed to live in a rental house with so many animals. And while we talk, I'm going to do my makeup for the day. Just to get right into it, I think the key for me being able to have as many animals as I do in this rental house is the fact that I'm renting from an individual, not a company. This is my third rental that I've lived in. The other two times that I rented, there were very strict pet policies. When I applied to the first rental property, I only had one dog, and that was not an issue. That was a little apartment, and they actually fenced in the area behind my apartment so that my dog would have a fenced backyard, which I thought was really accommodating of them. And then while I was living there, I adopted one cat, and I moved that one dog and that one cat to my next rental property, and that also wasn't an issue for them. But while I was at that rental property, Life, the cat distribution system, I acquired 3 more cats, which put my total at 5 animals, 4 cats and 1 dog. And while I was really excited to have these new animals, which are the coop kitties, one of my concerns was finding a different place to rent when the time came, because we were quickly outgrowing that house, but I also knew that having so many animals was going to present a challenge when finding a new place to rent. I started having issues at that house, and we were outgrowing it because when I moved in I had 2 animals and now I had 5. So I started looking on Zillow for rental properties, and if you look on Zillow, you can see who lists the property. Another issue that I was going to have with finding another rental property is my income. When I rented the last house that I was in, I was working for the state. I had proof of income and pay stubs. Now I'm a TikToker, so I work for myself, and although I have money in the bank, what I don't really have are consistent pay stubs to show. Between the pets and the income issue, I knew I was going to have to pretty much find the exact right place to go. Before I came and saw this house, I was actually looking at a smaller house that was rented by a company, and I was talking to them. I figured that I can be pretty persuasive, so if I could talk to somebody at the company, maybe they could, maybe we could work together and I could show, hey, I do have income, it's inconsistent, but like, let me show you my income, and I have all these animals, but they're really well taken care of and they don't cause damage to the property. That company was okay with my animals, but the reason that that house did not work out is the company that was renting that house wanted me to pay an entire year's worth of rent up front because of my income type. And although that house was cheaper month to month than this house that I'm in, I just couldn't fork out that kind of money all up front. The house that I ended up renting that I'm in now, I was eyeing on Zillow, and I did see that it was rented by an individual. I had it saved for that reason, even though I honestly thought from looking at the pictures, this house was going to be too big for us. Like, it was too much house. It was more than we needed. But I thought, let me just call and see what their pet policy is. Because at that point I was calling lots of places to just kind of figure out what might be possible for us with my kind of income and so many animals. I ended up talking to the landlord on the phone and set up a time to go see it pretty much as soon as the previous residents vacated. I was the first person to come and see it. I met the landlord here at the house, and I was upfront with him and was like, I have this really interesting kind of income, but I also have animals, and that's actually a really big part of how I make my income. I share my life on social media, show people what it's like to foster. So I foster, I bring in animals that aren't mine and probably wouldn't be listed on the lease permanently. How do you feel about that? To my surprise, he said, bring them. Just, make sure they don't cause any damage to the property. And that I recognize is a huge anomaly with renting. And that was kind of a sign for me that if we're going to move somewhere and we're going to get out of that other house, this is probably where it's going to be. If I was going to rent, if I was going to buy, this wouldn't be an issue, but for a multitude of reasons, I was not in the market to buy. This house is honestly such a find, and my landlord is so awesome. I knew that if I didn't jump on this, someone else was going to. So we ended up working out a lease like that week, and yeah, I rented the house. Short form of the story, I'm able to do these things because I rent from an individual, not a company, and an individual who is just genuinely like a good person.